Last night, my wife's car was low on gas, so I went to fill it up. Even with the discount from the bonds, we paid more than $1 a gallon, paid more than $100 to fill up a small tank of gas. It's the same experience people are having across the country. And you're wondering, how does this location affect the world? From our gas price to what we can produce, to almost every product that needs oil. You know, some of the greatest production we have in this country is right here in Kern County. God has blessed us, and we do it in an environmentally sound way. But ever since Gavin Newsom has become governor, his role of not providing the permits, more than 1,000 permits sit on his desk. So what does that mean? It means California, since he's been governor, has lowered production by 20%. That's 89,000 barrels a day. But you still need the crude oil. So where do you get it? He's replaced it through the time from Russia, getting 50,000 barrels a day. So what does that mean? Instead of more jobs being produced in California, Putin is getting our money. And what is he doing with it?
California imports over 51% of the Ecuadorian oil that's produced in the rainforest. The governor of the state of California purchases over 50% of Ecuador's oil, and it's brought here via bunker fuel vessels over our ecosystem. 55% of people of color work in our oil industry. Out of that, when you look at that percentage point as well, 20% are United States military veterans, 12% are women, 22% of the people that work in this industry that make well above a six-figure income are second chancers. It stops recidivism. It lets people have a job, which is the greatest security that you can ever have, and a job is the greatest solution to poverty. If you talk to some of these guys behind us, or you talk to an oil-filled guy, there's a good chance that they've served a time in prison. I'm not saying these guys did, but there's a good chance that you will have met someone. And I'm not saying these guys, but there's a good chance that you'll meet somebody that works in the oil industry that had a second chance and an opportunity to provide for their families.
Now, in August, I declared that I was in the business of going out of business. Someone said I had to say that today, and I was hopeful that with a change in perspective, maybe that's not the case, and let's go do what we've got to do.
I'm very proud to introduce our mayor of Taft, Dave Noerr. Come on up.
We produce over 70% of all the oil produced in California, about 70% of the natural gas, close to 60% of the renewables in the state of California. We are that cornucopia. If anybody in the state of California understands the proper integration of all energy sources into an infrastructure, it's Kern County, California. We have written the book on it. If we're doing all the heavy lifting, that means there's a lot of counties out there that are not. They're riding on our backs. But you know what? We're okay with that. We've been doing the heavy lifting for energy in the state of California for over 100 years, and we are very, very good at it. As far as safety, as far as human rights, nobody can touch it. These guys behind us go through training day in and day out, week in and week out. Diesel was $4.45 a gallon that day that I left. Just a couple weeks ago. I went through Needles, California on I-40. It was $6.99.9. I crossed the river 2 miles later, $4.56. At the end of the street in Bullhead City where I lived, $3.39.9. Why is that? They don't produce oil in Arizona. They don't refine oil in Arizona, and they don't steam Saudi Arabian super tankers up the Colorado River. That is the cost of California. That is the Sacramento surcharge. That's fines, fees, and infrastructure. That's agreements. That's the problem. It's not a direct correlation between the cost of a barrel of oil and a gallon of gas. That is government intervention at its purest form. That's the indifference of a governor and Cal Jim to the plight of the bulk of the people in the state of California.
Majority of this oil on this property right here goes to asphalts. We're still going to drive on roads. We still need asphalts. Ink oils, all the packaging you see on like Costco boxes, transform oils. Our refinery, they get calls when there's a hurricane hits and destroys miles of electric and transmission line. Heck, even a windmill needs lube oils. All plastics in car. Every tire basically has like 6.5 gallons of crude oil in it. And you need that to make an automobile tire. This is the kind of things that's not going away.
I would have never expected the betrayal that we've seen from the Newsom administration to come after our most important industry, and that's oil and gas. Oil and gas they are 6 out of our 10 top taxpayers. 81% million a year that goes to fund county government. That's sheriff deputies, firefighters, our parks, our animal services, you name it, oil pays for it. $100 million to our schools from the oil industry, and if our industry is driven out of business. And that's exactly what the Newsom administration is trying to do.
That one time was covertly suppressed by our state government, and now there's no covert about it. It is clear that they want to suppress our production. And why is it that we have a product that can be produced locally, can be processed locally, and it is consumed locally? I mean, what other product is there out there that wouldn't be viewed as a wonderful thing? Some thought that oil and renewables are in competition with one another. I don't see it that way. I think we are arm in arm with renewables. We are an industry that's embracing the use of renewable energy.
It was the Energy Secretary said back in December in the National Petroleum Council, she urged oil companies to take advantage of those leases to hire more workers, get the rig count up. Understanding that takes time, what's the status of that? Is that something that's being worked on and you think can help?
You know what's so sad? Our Secretary of Energy doesn't even know how much we produce a day or how much we need. She doesn't understand the industry. I would welcome her to come here because she's got 4,000 permits that are still sitting there. She's got 6 permits on LNG that's been sitting at the desk for no other reason. You know what the LNG, liquid natural gas? We can export it. You know who we'd export it to? Europe. You know why? Because they're getting it from Russia. You know what the second pipeline is? Is so Russia can produce more natural gas to Europe. So stop trying to pick that it's the oil industry that you've been trying to go after and let people produce more. It's a simple supply and demand. If you want to know what the Democrats' policies were, they brought in every major oil CEO last year. You know what their question was? Will you promise, Ro Khanna asked this. He's one that Bernie is asking to run for president. Would you promise to produce less oil next year and be like Europe? You know what? I don't want to be like Europe. I don't want to be beholden to Putin. I want to control our own destiny. And then you watch on the Financial Services Committee. The Democrats asked the banking community, will you stop providing capital to the oil industry?